So, if I became a Christian, would I have to take the Bible literally? Short answer, yes, I think you would. But, before you get too nervous, what do we mean by literally? You see, the Bible has a lot of stuff in it. And the Bible is a very complex book, actually 66 books, 39 in the Old Testament, 27 in the New Testament. And so when we say we have to take it literally, well, what do we actually mean? Well, here are just two things to think about. The first is understanding the type of literature it is that you're reading, right? The genre of the thing that you're reading. And across the Bible, through these 66 books, there are many different kinds of literature. You have creation literature, which is very complex and very hard to understand. You have historical narratives. You have prophetic literature. You have psalms. You have proverbs, which are sort of wisdom sayings. You have epistles, which are letters. You have the apocalyptic writings, which are quite scary and have a lot of imagery in them. And so the question is quite big, and we have to start with understanding what genre it is, what type of text it is that we're actually dealing with. The second thing that we need to do, and this is really important, is come to understand what the author was really trying to convey at the time that they wrote it to the people who were receiving it. So it's understanding the author's intent. So we have genre, the type of literature, and understanding the author's intent. And that involves actually understanding the historical background of what's going on as well. I think we could ask this question of any text, any book we read. We pick it up, we could say, well, are we supposed to take this literally? Think of this by way of illustration. If we go and take a poem from the well-known poet William Blake, he wrote a poem titled, "What is Poetry?" And in it he writes this: "To hold the world in a grain of sand, and a heaven in a wildflower, to see infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour." Now that's a beautiful poem. And the question is, are we supposed to take it literally? Well, can we see the world in a grain of sand? Can we see a heaven in a wildflower? Well, I think intuitively we know that this isn't supposed to be taken literally in this hard sense. But at the same time, we understand the author's intent. We understand that this is poetic language, but it's pointing to truths beyond the language. And so the idea of seeing a world in a wildflower, it's true, but it's true at the second level. It expands our horizons and our imagination much, much bigger. And it's saying something true and beautiful, yet not absolutely literally in that way. And that understanding comes from just recognizing that William Blake was just writing a beautiful poem to help us imagine something beautiful, imagine something more, to experience and see a world beyond. And so one of the things we have to acknowledge when we're reading the Bible is that it does use, much like the poetry of William Blake, poetic language or metaphorical language sometimes, or even allegorical language. So for instance, the Bible says that Jesus is the door, but that doesn't mean that he's wooden and swings on hinges. Or it says in the Old Testament multiple times in different ways that the arm of the Lord was with Israel. Well, does that mean that they were carrying around a sort of a dismembered arm? Well, I don't think so. But it's pointing to something true. It's saying that the strength of the Lord, the power of the Lord was with us. And so we have to acknowledge that that kind of thing is also there in the Bible, and we acknowledge that that is part of the text, it's part of the genre we're considering. But the Bible doesn't only do that. It also has historic literature, historical narratives, as we see in the biographies of Jesus' life in the New Testament, something like the books of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and the book of Acts that traces the early life of the church after Jesus' death and resurrection. And so when it comes to those kind of books, well, we know that these are reporting historical events, and so we don't interpret those as we would poetry. We see that they're making claims on historical facts. And I think that's really where the question is. As much as we can acknowledge all the different genres and poetic literature and these different kinds of things, the real question is, if I become a Christian, am I going to have to acknowledge what those historical biographies are saying, especially about Jesus, especially about his life, his death, and his resurrection? Now in this short video, we don't have time to go into it. We have multiple other videos you can go look at on the evidence for the resurrection. But what we have in these biographies is really multiple eyewitnesses, people saying that they came to see and speak with and eat with the risen Jesus Christ. And if it's true that Jesus rose from the dead, then it means that his claims to be God in the flesh are true. And that's something that each of us needs to wrestle with and understand that, well, we have to make a decision on who Jesus really is, each one of us. And so that would be my invitation to you. If you've never read about the life of Jesus, if you're not too sure who he was or what the Bible is all about, let me encourage you. Pick up a Bible, go to the New Testament, open up one of the Gospels, say the Gospel of Mark, and read about who Jesus is, what he did, what he said, his amazing revolutionary teaching, and then that he rose from the dead. And as you do that, as you read through it and you come to see who Jesus is through the pages of the Bible, well, why not be speaking to God and ask him to speak to you? And as you do that, I really believe he will.